Wondering what the F has happened to your body and your life? You're in the right place, my friend. Welcome to Season 3 of Transforming 45, where we dive into the incredible stories of how brilliant humans are navigating the midlife squeeze with courage, passion, and a healthy dose of humor. Don't miss out on any of our heart-led episodes. Hit the subscribe button, leave a 5-star review, and if you're inspired, share an episode you love with a friend. It means more to me than I can express that you're choosing to spend time here and sharing our message of midlife revolution. So let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. This week, I am really excited to have Cheryl Stelte. She is a spiritual coach, a master healer, and 2-time best-selling author, and has spent 3 decades helping women and spiritual entrepreneurs transcend barriers and find clarity. Founder of the Star of Divine Light Institute and the Azarius Energy Healing Certification Program, she empowers clients to achieve profound transformations, especially through its transitions. Boy, do I need you right now. Cheryl's superpower is clearing deep subconscious blocks, enabling her clients to step into their most powerful selves and reach milestones they once thought unattainable. As myself and most of the listeners of this show are all going through major transformations, I am so looking forward to this conversation. So welcome to the show, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. It really is an honor to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. And I know that there's going to be a lot of really great takeaways for listeners today, because we're going to get more into this, but I have been reading your newest book, and there's so much, there's a well and a depth of strategies and techniques that people can take away. So if you are listening today, maybe grab a pen, even and a piece of paper, because you might want to take some notes today so that you have some really lovely practices that you can start implementing almost right away. More on that later. But Cheryl, tell us, who are you and how did life introduce you to this version?
Thank you. Thank you for the great introduction. I love how you just really held me in that. It's one of the best introductions I think I've ever had. I'm like, whoa. Anyway, thank you for that. And I have to change my bio because I just launched my book. Let's launch this from block to powerful in my 3rd book. And Transforming 45 is such a big topic. It's it for me. And once you go through whatever you go through in midlife like that, I hope you never stop, because I have not stopped. I'm 63 this month, and I am transforming 63.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
So I don't know that it ends. And what really got me here, I had my own struggles around power. We all, I think, women, not just our culture, but cultures worldwide, it's kind of been that men are more powerful than women. And I do chakra readings on people frequently, and I almost always see the same subconscious blocks in women in the back of the solar plexus at the bottom. And it's that cultural conditioning. It's not okay to be as powerful as men or more powerful. And what is power? What is authentic power? And so I've devoted a whole chapter in my new book to what is authentic power, because we all know it's not power over. But what is it really? What is it really? That authentic, internal, personal power, and at a higher level, the power of the universe moving through you. And I believe fully that we are all powerful beyond belief, powerful beyond what we can currently imagine. I never in a million years thought I'd be doing what I'm doing today. Never in a million years thought I would have been the author of 3 books. What happened? So I had my own challenges with power, big time. I married a covert narcissist very young, Narcissist was not a word back then. And like many women, I talked to so many women who were in the same boat. We were married 13 years and I left, and it was like my world was wide open. And now what? I have 2 kids. I'm a single mom, and I knew I wanted to change. I found my spiritual path early on. So 31 years I've been meditating and healing and, studied multiple practices. And thank you for reading my book. And there's, just some in there, I think the most powerful ones. But at 45, it's around that time. This is what I think happened to me and happens to most women. We develop these patterns through our subconscious wounding, trauma that is held in the right side of the brain. And it's stored through emotions and physical sensations. Trauma and wounding is not stored in linear memories. And so what that does, it creates patterns in our lives that play out in every area, in relationships, in our careers, in our health, and even spiritually. So the soul comes in, we sign up for a lot of this wounding. We choose it, So that's when I started to take even more responsibility for it. But what was so different around that age was I started to feel this sense of I'm really meant for more. I am so meant for more. But what is that? What is it? So I knew I had blocks and I lacked clarity, but I developed this inner knowing I'm meant for more. So I started looking at my life differently. What needs to change? How can I figure this out? Did all sorts of things, tried multiple things. And for me, the answer was in healing and empowerment. And so what I didn't know then, what I was doing was I was healing myself. For how many years already, I was healing myself at a subconscious level. What needed to come up was coming up, and I was reprogramming my subconscious. In the first years, it was just healing. There was no empowerment until I'd been doing it for a while, and that started to happen. And then I realized, what we're clearing from the subconscious, we can reprogram. And now it's known as, we're taking advantage of the brain's neuroplasticity. And so then what happens is when the pattern is gone or diminished, at the least, we're different and we automatically behave differently. It's not mindset work. It's not catching ourselves, because what actually happens, a lot of people will say the thought comes before the emotion. And it's also been proven that the emotion comes before the thought. It's the thought catching up with the emotion. The heart really leads. And so those old patterns, both positive and negative, are leading us. And so I didn't know where I was heading, and it started to unfold. And my biggest challenges in life have been to step into my greatness, to step into the powerful woman I was meant to be. I'm telling you, who do you think you are came up so big, it would completely derail me. And I would have to heal that again at a new level. So I really had to laugh, fast forward. So 45, 55, 18 years later, here I am, and I'm guided to write this 3rd book. Never planned on writing a 2nd book. That unfolded. And then I thought, I'm done with book writing. And then this opportunity, and I kept getting this sort of niggling, oh, you're meant for more again. And it's like, and it's through writing a book. And I'm like, oh, another book. Write a book. It has its challenges. I have yet to meet an author that hasn't faced blocks during their book. And really, writing a book is an avenue for personal growth. I mean, it's one of the best avenues for personal growth. So much about the throat chakra, etc. So I hit my own, I got the book completed, had some bumps along the way, and I went through, I don't know how many titles, and then I finalized the title, and I was thrilled with the title, From Blocked to Powerful, But then it came up again. Who do you think you are to write about powerful?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the deeper layer still. It's because I believe whenever we take a giant step forward in life, in that we are meant for more and we're starting to live that, whatever kept us from doing it before will come up. So I could see that instantaneously. It's like, oh yeah, Cheryl, I know this. Okay. And so I did what I do and I did what I teach. I do absolutely walk my talk, and I move beyond that level, that block. And I have to say, I'm so proud of this book. And I really feel like it's kind of my legacy book. I'm doing a program right now for the first time that's for previous clients who've been through my throat chakra program or my client magnet program or Azaria's or more than one. And it's called the higher state throat chakra program, because our greatness is expressed primarily. That's what the throat chakra is about. And so it just seemed to unfold naturally. And so the transforming, I learned how to do it, at 45, and I still keep doing it.
Yes. And I think that, so thank you, one, for sharing so much wisdom in that part of your story. And I know that that's not your full story also. That's, like one element of it. And it is that wisdom of the transformation never stops, right? The metamorphosis never stops, because we don't do healing and then just live in a world that is full of just neutral, right? Life continues to happen. We don't go into a state of stasis. That's the word I was looking for. Life continues to happen all around us, and we continue to have those experiences. So, of course, and I think thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's so important for people to recognize that, because I think people fall into that failure cycle of, I don't know how many times I've heard people say to me, oh man, I thought I healed that. And beating themselves up for experiencing that, either the wound or the emotion that went with it. And my response always is, no, the transformation doesn't stop, right? Like, you've poured love into yourself. That's a beautiful thing. Give that to yourself, and life continues to happen.
That's right. I agree wholeheartedly. And if you think of it this way, another way that I say that is, the universe is constantly supporting us, loving us, holding us. And the way of supporting is reflecting back to us what the next layer is for continued growth.
Yes.
Continued growth. That's my number one reason for being here. Continued. That includes loving others and opening up to receiving love, to making a difference in the world, loving up my granddaughter now, whatever it is. But the universe is always showing us, always guiding us. And when we say no to it, then it's like, okay, he's not ready. Well, let's try again in another 3 weeks. Oh, let's try in another 6 months. And so and I'm guilty of going, really? Even this, when being powerful came up for me, I'm like, really? And then, of course. So when we say yes and try and look at what is it that I need to look at in myself, never why is this happening? It's proven that successful people don't say, why is this happening? They say, what is it I need to know? You get very specific. I watched a TED Talk one. I wish I could remember what it was. It was on procrastination.
Okay.
So, and I noticed that these are my questions I'll ask myself. What is it I don't want to feel? So using the word what, not why. What is it I don't want to feel? What is it I need to learn from this? What is my opportunity here for growth? And it requires courage and opening oneself up, right?
Yes. Oh gosh, absolutely. It really requires Opening the self up for sure. And I think, this is one of those stems that, listeners, if you're out there, write this down, because when you are in times that are in times that are hard. So it's what I'm referring to when the write this down is the, what do I not want to feel? What do I need to learn from this? Because when you are in those times that are really intense, and I can speak to this because I'm in one of those very intense times, and I feel my questioning going into why is this so hard? Why is this happening to me? All of those why questions. And it's such a powerful reminder that the shift to what is the question that leaves us open, right? Why is not an open question, but what is. And when you ask the what question, you're right. But the other part of that is you have to be willing to surrender to a little bit of quiet. And that when you ask the what questions, you have to give yourself time to hear the answer. And that's where the courageousness comes in, because in this world where we are so called to distraction and to avoid feeling, it's the pairing of the two things, of the what question and then giving yourself space for stillness and quietness.
I appreciate that. And yes, it's mandatory. It's mandatory. You cannot get out of the why without that quietness in the space. And what happens with the why, what that actually does to us, it's proven that the trauma that's stored in the right side of the brain, one of the greatest traumas that most of us older people have experienced is not having an emotional resource there for us. And our parents couldn't be the emotional resource that we needed because they didn't have it. It wasn't learned. I mean, back in my day, people didn't talk about their emotions. It was not a thing. And it is a human need to have an emotional resource, someone there to help you process your emotions. And so trauma is also identified as the ongoing abuse of not being an emotional resource for someone who's in pain. And what it causes, it's not the initial incident or each incident. What it is, it's that uncertainty in life that it creates. There's this ongoing uncertainty. So what happens, I believe, when we go into the why is this happening, we've gone right back into that pattern of uncertainty. Why isn't, if the child can't think, why isn't anyone there for me? Or when it can be when what a parent says does not match their behavior. Lead and teach, and it doesn't. So it's very confusing. So confusion is, you can, even if you can't get there, you can check in. Am I feeling confused? When you're feeling confused, you're stuck. You're going to stay stuck. It's hard to get out of it. You'll keep asking the why. Change, what is making me feel confused? What kind of clarity do I need? And so I always say, it's interesting. So I'm a firm believer in active meditation, not so much mindfulness, but going and using meditation and the full breath to access the subconscious. And so I have two groups of meditators when I'm working with people. One group meditates faithfully every day until things go sideways, and then they can't meditate when things are going wrong. And then there's the other group who don't meditate regularly. They only meditate when things are going sideways.
Oh, interesting.
Cool. They use it as a tool. For those of us who, when we need the meditation the most, and we find we can't even sit down. I'm in that group. I mean, I've been meditating 31 years. I don't miss. But what happens is I will avoid going into my feelings, and I'll do something else. I'll get on my screen, in a worst case scenario. But then I say to myself, what is it I don't want to feel? What is it I don't want to feel? So that cuts to the chase. And then I go in, because it's still hard to feel it. I've been doing this 31 years. And lots of times it's not that hard, but the bigger the opportunity for growth, the harder it is to feel the emotion that we are being offered to move beyond, to clear and reprogram the subconscious into much more joyous emotions.
Yeah. That's really fascinating to me because I also fall into that group of like I meditate regularly, but when things are going sideways, I don't. And it for me, my experience is it makes me more anxious. And it's the what don't I want to feel, right? That is the question that really is at the heart of that. And I because of my need to persevere through things, I still force myself into the meditation, and then it ends up my anxiety level just increases and increases and increases. And so that is your perspective is really important because it's the okay, Lisa, this is not actually an Olympic sport. Let's take a minute and take a breath and step back a little bit and sit in the what don't I want to feel.
Right. Right. And for you and for anybody out there who feels anxiety, when you become anxious, you're aware of it, right? So the easiest entry point, that's the entry point. So you can go into, oh, I'm feeling anxious, and breathe into it. How does your body feel? Let your body tell you, just notice the physical sensations. And it starts when you breathe into it, when you use the full breath, then you start to release that anxiety, and not just the anxiety in the moment, but you can take it right back to when it first started.
And that's such a important connection, that like the mind, brain, spirit, body connection, how everything is woven together. Because in these periods of my life, my pattern is it always flares in my body. So my back gets really, really tight in a very specific spot, and the pain is the same every single time when I'm going through this sort of cycle. And the only thing really that helps is breathing into it. And yet, when you're in that state of anxiety and everything is tight, breathing is hard. So giving yourself a little bit of grace and space. And again, I think that takes me back also to the quiet, like being willing to just sit with a little bit of quietness and breathe rather than feeling like we have to continuously be in action.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that you breathe into that tightness in your back. That's, may I offer
Please.
better practice?
Yes, I will take it all right now.
So what happens, what I've discovered, and the reason I work with the chakras is because I discovered 30 years ago that my wounding actually originates in the chakras. And so this is how I describe it. It's kind of like, so you're feeling your pain in your back. So that's where some of the trauma is stored, but the root of it is in a chakra somewhere, often the root chakra. So let me describe it this way. It's is like a dandelion. We want to pull the dandelion out, and we all know if you just pluck the flower off the dandelion, it's back, right?
Yes.
If you chop it off at the earth level, it's going to grow back. We need to get down to the root. So your pain in your back, great to breathe into it. And then you can ask yourself, where is the origin? Where is the root of this? Because the pain is the flower. So often I'm doing a healing on someone, I'm in the root chakra, and they're getting all this pain in their neck or their shoulder or somewhere else. I'm like, great. So notice it, and then keep your awareness in the root chakra, because what you're doing is you're digging down and you want to get to the tip of the root. And so getting to the tip of the root means whatever the emotion is, whatever its origin is, and when did this begin in early childhood or even as an infant and as early as in the womb. There's so much wounding that happens in the womb. And we're not, the more developed or advanced you get at the practices that I offer, you're able to go into it. So I encourage you then, start with the back. Okay, it's always tight. It's in the same spot. That's a flower. So you keep plucking the flower and it grows back. So it's a great start. but follow, is this in my root chakra? Is it in my sacral? And when you first start doing this, it's pretty much always in the root. Just go to the root chakra, tip of the tail, and start there.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting really emotional as you're talking because there is a lot that I feel like I've known in my cells but haven't really acknowledged. And there is a lot of fascinating research coming out about the impact of the womb on developing fetuses, right? The chemical soup that ends up in a mother's body, depending on her experience that she's having during that pregnancy. And my fear response is huge. Like I have never actually gotten over you know how infants have that startle response? I've never lost my startle response ever. So my family will joke about it, but like one unknown move and I am like jumping feet out of my seat. And recently I found out that my mom had had many miscarriages before I was born. And so while you were talking, it was making sense. It was like putting those pieces together because I didn't really think about how that would have influenced my mom's experience of this pregnancy and the fear I'm sure that she held around is this pregnancy going to work? And this is information that is also sort of new for me. I have an aunt who recently was like, oh yeah, you were the miracle baby. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even know about this. And she was like, yeah, they were thinking that maybe they wouldn't ever even be able to have children because she'd had so many miscarriages. And then my delivery was also really traumatic. And that knowing those pieces and having those conversations that we don't think to have with our mothers or people who are in their lives at that time, if our parent is no longer living, is such a beautiful way of doing some ancestral healing. Because now I can understand my physiological responses to things a little bit better. And I wish that she was still here so we could have this conversation. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. And you can do ancestral healing. I really hear you. And I've done so much healing in the womb for myself. The bulk of my clients, I get women these days, really, they're mature women who are very aware of their blocks and they want the clarity and they are actually just desperate to move forward. It's like they've tried everything and they want that one thing that's going to be it. And that's the feedback I get. Nobody takes you as deep as you do, Cheryl. I've never, even I had one client who was in therapy, did all kinds of energy healing, everything. She's done it all, 45 years. And she said, nobody. So going back into the womb, there are multiple ways to clear that fear. So what happens is the fetus does often take on the mother's emotions and the father's, the people around take it on. And so you have that in you and there's a way to release it. There's multiple ways, not just one. And I don't want to make this all about that. Yeah. And what that does is it's different whether your mother has passed or whether she's still here in the present. It's treated a little bit differently, but it's similar as to what can happen. And at the same time can be very healing for her. I won't get into all the details, but yes, a lot of these things happen in the womb. And, like you said, research is showing that, we need to have that bonding hormone, the oxytocin. That's one of the biggest things, have that developed in the womb. And then when the baby is born, to have that eye contact.
Yes.
Really engage in that. And when you don't get that, it's hard to give it to others. You have to be aware of it. And the baby will automatically look into the mother's eyes. The baby can't help but do that. It's when the mother doesn't respond and doesn't respond. That in itself is trauma if it scares the mother. And I have to say, I remember when my first child was born, my son, and I remember that time he looked into my eyes and the depth of a new eyes is so deep and it startled me. I was a little scared, like it really shook something inside me. And I looked, and then I went, wait a minute, this is love. And even as a young, very young mother, I knew somehow there was something in me. And I looked back into his eyes, and it just was, and we can help ourselves get what we didn't get, no matter what age we are. I work with women in their 70s. It doesn't matter how old you are, but to get all those needs met is what helps us break free, and it helps us discover who we truly are. I don't encourage goal setting when we do this work, because you're setting your goals from a wounded place. You're setting your goals from a wounded filter with a lens on, with wearing not rose-colored glasses.
Yes.
When you discover more of who you truly are through the reprogramming, then the goals are just no-brainers. Like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. This is what I'm meant to do. Here I am. This is my next thing. I never had a goal to write a third book. And then something uncovered in me, and whoa, there was this opportunity right in my face. And I went, oh, wow, this is it. I need to say yes. Oh, okay. Thing in the next thing. So I hope it's helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I was getting teary again while you were talking, because I just recently dropped both of my children off for their first year of university. And it was when we were driving there, what I kept thinking about was that moment that I first looked into their eyes.
Oh.
And I just kept remembering that moment, which is so beautiful. And it's just hard to believe that they become so big so fast. And so there's that element of it. And it's really important, I think, especially right now, to remember that it's something that you can always heal, because, sorry, there's so much research, again, going back to the research component, so I can, my academic self can pull it all together, around the impact of devices and parents not looking at their children the way that we have in the past, and how that is causing huge disconnects with our younger generation. And I think that can be overwhelming for parents to hear when they're hearing that information, because they're taking that in of like, oh my gosh, I didn't do that and now I can't fix it. And so your message of we can always come back to this is so important and so healing, to know that you didn't know what you didn't know at the time, but now you know, and we can move forward in a better way. And so making that connection with the young humans in front of us, with the older humans in front of us, is so important for collective healing.
That's right. You're so right. And, I can really feel the depth of your love for your kids, and yeah, dropping them off at university here, they're all grown. And you remember when they were inside you and they came into this world and you looked in their eyes, and all that love. And love is pain. Love is, it hurts. And love is so much, it hurts. Oh my goodness. And you're right. It's never too late. I have a client, she's in my higher state throat chakra program, but she did my first throat chakra program. And what drew her to do that was she watched an interview that I did, and I talked about four core wounds. And what struck a chord in her, she actually burst into tears, was when I said, well, the wound of I don't matter. And she just burst into tears, and she's like, wow, I have to meet this woman. But son, and so we worked together. She just had two boys, one age 4 and one age 7. She realized, and both problem kids, especially the 4-year-old, lots of problems. Had both the kids in therapy and seeing specialists, and lots of problems. And so I helped her look into her little baby self eyes. We can do this, and it's doing the deep work. It's not just like in your head. You can't be, you've got to be in your right brain. And so, we talked about her looking into her little 4-year-old son. So she just started doing that. When she would talk with him, she would get down to his level, look in his eyes. And then when she started to drop him off at preschool, and she would talk with him, she would get down to his level, look in his eyes. And then when she started to drop him off at preschool, and she would talk with him, she would get down to his level, look in his eyes. And then when she started to drop him off at preschool, he would look back at her and look into her eyes, and she would make the eye contact, and he would just get a big smile on his face. And then he started looking every day. Every day she would drop him off, he would do that. And then he would just start to giggle. And so now a thing with the two of them, he looks for it. And his behavior has improved. He understands his emotions better. He's just becoming a much better adapted little boy and growing up. And she's just like, that one thing has changed both my kids so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that, because we sometimes get wrapped up in the story of like healing has to be really hard and long and arduous and, all the things. And it absolutely can be as simple. And that is really powerful, is looking in each other's eyes. And I was lucky that I had, women in my life very early on who taught me that. Like, I've worked with children forever, essentially. And that was my key. My go-to was getting down to their level and looking in their eyes. And whatever was happening in any moment, as soon as I got down there and looked them directly in their eyes, the energy of whatever that was changed and allowed a much better interaction to happen. And so I'm always grateful to those wise women that I had who encouraged that practice from such a young age on my part. And it makes me think, what would be possible if as adults we did that with each other, right? In a world and in a time where there is so much division, the act of sitting down from someone and looking each other in the eyes is powerful, because we can't deny each other's divinity when we do that.
That's right. And I love it that you say we can't deny each other's divinity, because there's different levels to doing it. We can, sometimes people can look someone in the eye and be telling an outright lie. They can be manipulating us. And so it's a very different feeling than someone who is open and receiving our gaze. And for us, to receive that person's gaze who's open to connecting at that level. And so it moves us into the heart, into our whole being, and ultimately the soul. And that's the divinity. We are all one. Separation is an illusion. And what if the world was that way? And so the more we develop that and other skills, the better humanity is going to be. And, on the note of, we've really gotten on to talking about babies and development.
Yeah. Who knew that's where this conversation was going to go today?
That's the part that needs is the early on. And I forgot my thought.
Oh, it will come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. But we can heal that at any time, at any age. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. One of the other practices that I found really helpful from your newest book was bringing the chakras internal. Because I think I can speak specifically for myself. I always visualized my chakras outside of myself, right? In a line sort of just outside. And that shift in visualization of pulling them into the body made a really big difference for me in the way I was able to connect with them.
I hear you. Oh my goodness. Do you know how long it took me to figure that out? How long you got it from me?
Yeah. Thank you.
It's so many of us, we are not practiced at being in our bodies. So even when we meditate, if we're focusing on the chakras, it's automatic to focus on the front, to out in front of us, not inside. And the chakras are located along the inside of the spine, not in the middle of the body, not in the front, not outside the body, but along the spine. And the energy channels, the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna all run up and down the spine. Even in Chinese medicine, the bladder meridian runs up and down twice along each side of the spine. So I think those channels just have different names there between Vedic and Chinese medicine. And so if I could just share my story, how long it took me to figure this out. So I was doing this healing for a long time, focusing in the front of my body for more than 10 years. And then I was in a spiritual school and I was learning new practices based in Sufism, that sort of thing. But then I did a particular energy healing program, Herkalia Healing, and all the focus was on the chakras in the front of the body. And I would often invite my clients when I was doing my practicum to drop down inside their body. And then finally, till they got to the inside of the spine. And I noticed that the healing was so much more profound when we would go inward. So I asked the instructor one day, why don't we I said, this is what I've noticed. Why don't we just automatically go to the inside of the spine? Why not get the most bang for your buck?
Mm-hmm.
Just get the most out of it. And her response was, I don't know. I've never thought of it. And
Right.
I just started doing that. But what I did discover, the transitional piece was I became very aware that I was in front of myself, but my pain, like you said, was in my body in the back. So I'm trying to figure out what's really going on. And I realized I was outside of my body, my awareness, my focus. And so I brought it inside my body. And what I actually had to do, I had to focus inside of the spine, but my awareness would land kind of in the middle of the body. And so I kept doing that until I could get all the way inside. And so I just believe that we are all busy. I don't hear too many people saying, oh, I have so much time on my hands. Many other things I could be doing. I'm just not. No, we're all busy. And so let's get this done. Let's get in there and go cut to the chase, get right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's extremely helpful if you're meditating on your chakras. If you want to do this work, go right to the inside of the spine, where that's the center of the chakra.
Yeah, you can feel that difference when you do that, when you start the visualization with it internally, because when it again, you're right, like so many of us don't feel safe in our bodies, right? That's the root, that we need to be able to get ourselves back into our bodies. And I found that doing that visualization with the chakra in my body helped me be able to make that reconnection.
Right. Yeah. And we need to be, we all say, oh, I'm not in my body. Oh, you're in your head. You're not in your body. How do we do this? I just bought a toddler book for my granddaughter. She's 3, Listening to My Body. I'm so excited to give it to her in October. And but I'm like, I think this will be good for the parents too. It's good. All of us listening to the body, because it truly is the body's wisdom. The soul speaks through the body. It's our get in the way. It's all that previous conditioning, the wounds, the traumas that prevent us from knowing ourselves fully, which is part of that is being in the body.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I loved absolutely the messages that we give our children. So bringing it sort of full circle around here now, the messages we give to our children are often the messages that we need for ourselves. And so, yes, I'm sure that book is a beautiful gift for your granddaughter and for her caregivers, the people who love her, because the more we can do this work together, the more healing will happen on that collective level. And that's where I really think there's some really beautiful hope on the horizon.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just going back to when you said what we talked about, both of us will have a hard time jumping into meditation when we need it the most. And that's another question we can ask ourselves, not why am I here, but what do I feel in my body? What is my body telling me? But starting with that, what do I feel physically? Because remembering that trauma is stored in physical sensations. So we never want to push physical sensations away. We never want to try and get out of them. If we start to feel pain in a meditation, just let it be. Just notice it. Stay in the chakra, because that's the pain of the root coming out of that dandelion. And it's okay. It will pass. I've had people say, oh, my leg is so tight. I'm trying to relax it. I'm like, no, don't try. Let it be. That's the wound processing itself. So the emotions were stored. The trauma was stored in the leg, attached to whatever chakra we were working in, off in the root.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because it's really important, and it's such the opposite of everything that we try to do, right? Everything we do in our lives is to numb pain or to avoid the pain. And so that mind shift of just letting it be and letting it process is really important, especially when we're in those meditative states, because absolutely that is, we talk about this a lot. The body keeps the score, and letting the body breathe and move through that healing is so important. And so I hope, listeners, there are some real gems all the way through this, and this last little bit is really key. So I hope you can take this practice away. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here today, for holding some space for me while I clearly process some of my own pain and emotion. I really appreciate you, and I'm so grateful for this conversation today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's really been such an honor. And what I would just like to throw in is that if you're not quite ready to buy my new book, From Block to Powerful, what I would like to do is offer a free copy. I have a little ebook on my ACE method, which is a section. It's, I think it's 2 chapters in the book, but it's my ACE method to help you. A is for access those subconscious blocks. C is for clear them, and the E is empowerment. So if we can put a link, we'll put a link in the show, and that's yours to keep if you want to do this work on your own. And you can always, if you want to talk to me, you want to see if, we can have an insight session, that sort of thing, you can just go to callwithcheryl.com, and you can book a call with me. So I'm just so grateful to be a part of your world, Lisa, and everything that you're doing to support women in their transformations, their transitions.
Well, thank you. And that's a really lovely offer. And we will have all of Cheryl's contact information, all the places you can find her, all the places you can buy her books will be in the show notes. So make sure you check that out. Thank you for being part of the Transforming 45 community. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for more juicy episodes, and remember to keep showing up to your life with the love and magic you deserve. Until next time.